Hi, I'm Jim Carter. Good evening. This is a public safety question. You'll each have 3 minutes to respond. Due to the increase in crime, how do you propose to address the following public safety issues? Increasing traffic deaths, 22 as of this writing, excessive speeding, and sideshows. Please feel free to note any other public safety issues you will prioritize. We'll begin with Councilmember Mahan, followed by Councilmember Peralez, followed by Supervisor Chavez, and followed by Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Jim. Traffic safety has been a huge concern in District 10, as I know it is across the city. We've had just a tremendous amount of speeding and sideshows. And so our office convened a community working group with interested community members, representatives from different neighborhood associations. We worked together to get some funding in the budget for more pole-mounted radar signs. We've worked with our local police captain to collaboratively identify speeding and racing hotspots and increase enforcement at the appropriate times of day. We even worked with DOT to lower the threshold for getting approval to add speed humps in neighborhoods that have become popular cut-throughs for people's commute or at other times of the day when they're speeding through residential neighborhoods. We even put in a proposal and secured funding to test a roundabout at one of our more dangerous intersections. So we've been working collaboratively with community leaders to come up with different approaches to the problem. More broadly on public safety, we are going to have to increase staffing. Public safety is our #1 priority and responsibility as a city. To address it properly, we have to build our budget around police staffing. Growing the staffing of our department will allow us to deploy more officers to our traffic enforcement unit, which was absolutely decimated after the Great Recession and the Measure B battles. I've worked to and really advocated for automatic license plate readers and leveraging technology to supplement what is a thinly staffed force, as we all know. When it comes to pedestrian safety, there's a lot we can do in the built environment. It doesn't have to be that expensive. And again, back to technology, we can partner with companies like Verizon, who we already work with, to analyze data at dangerous intersections, for example, understand where we're having these near misses and come up with the investments and mitigations, whether it's better signage, more enforcement. Even this was not my idea, but the mayor had a clever idea the other day of using technology to know who we should send a letter to let them know that we're paying attention and we're disappointed in them for speeding, even if we're at a time when we can't yet issue tickets. Though that's another thing I should mention, which is that we are, of course, advocating at the state level to be exempt from the ban on using cameras to do traffic enforcement. So I think it's ultimately going to come down to proper staffing for traffic enforcement and other types of enforcement in our community, leveraging technology. And then finally, on the kind of ground level perpetual crime, particularly in downtown and our commercial districts, we have to work with the DA and our court system to increase accountability for repeat offenders and those who are violating the terms of their release. Thank you.
Hey, Councilmember Peralez.
Yeah, thank you very much. I actually volunteered to serve as chair of our Vision Zero task force that we initiated because of the rise that we've seen over the last number of years in traffic-related fatalities. And we've been taking on the challenges of traffic-related deaths and injuries very, very seriously. And I believe reducing these incidents is going to take a three-pronged approach. Number one, it's going to require infrastructure improvements and investments in traffic calming mechanisms. Number two, it's going to take law changes, specifically on things like speed cameras or reducing the speed limit. And lastly, it's going to take enforcement. The quick build projects that we've been implementing throughout the city, we've seen success in them, but we haven't collected enough data. That's one of the areas where I'll be asking, and next week, actually chairing our Vision Zero task force meeting, be drilling down to ensure we are doing the right quick build projects in the right areas, the ones that we are seeing the most success out of. We know that we can create more of those solutions simply by adding more resources in the budget. And we've seen a lot of these work in areas like downtown where we piloted them, and we need to utilize those solutions more frequently throughout the entire city. Secondly, law changes. We have been advocating to change laws to make it easier to do things like reduce the speed limit. And I'm proud that that has moved forward, but it is still remaining a challenge. And I think there is still room to improve there. Secondly, we have a recent challenge with getting an opportunity to implement speed cameras in the city of San Jose. And unfortunately, it's actually our local police union, my former union, the POA, that has yet to endorse that solution following the statewide organization PORAC, who also is not in support of this state law that would allow San Jose to implement that pilot. Hence, as Councilmember Mahan was saying, the mayor was talking about sending out warning letters. Well, warning letters aren't going to change people's habits. We need to be able to have the opportunity to implement these speed cameras, and I'm hoping that both PORAC and our local union will get on board with that. Lastly, it's about enforcement. And the only way we're going to get there, and this actually speaks to the challenges that we have in general with addressing public safety, is we still have a lack of resources. We are 250 officers shy of where we were over a decade ago. And I was a police officer at that time when we were one of the most proactive departments addressing these crimes, responding to these calls for service like property crimes, quality of life crimes, the issues that we're seeing today that really go largely unchecked. We need to continue to rebuild our police department. I'm proud that we went from just over 800 to now 1,150, but we need to continue to invest in those resources and rebuilding our department.
Supervisor Chavez.
Thank you, Jim. Let me start where Councilmember Perales left off. I think there's no substitute for having more officers. And that would be a priority. And I know we're going to talk about budget a little bit later, but that's certainly a priority. I also just want to comment on the issues around technology. I think that's right, that we need to be able to access speed cameras and also license plate readers. And I know that technology really can make a difference, and I've seen it make a difference in other areas of public safety, and I'll hopefully get a chance to talk about that. And then the other is that I think we should think, especially as it relates to sideshows, I think that being able to test and quickly innovate around what kinds of traffic calming helps is really critical. I also think we need to talk to large property owners where sideshows are both happening and gathering to make sure that people are shutting their gates or restructuring their ingress and egress so they're not so easy to access. So there is a role for the private sector and property owners to play as well. Just to speak a little bit about the importance of technology, one of the things that we've done here in the county is that we have reduced our backlog of rape kits, and also we're testing rape kits, I think, faster than any other county in the country. And in part, we're doing that with small investments we made in the crime lab and adding staff that are not badged to be able to make it easier for us to move, for example, rape kits from point A to point B, and making sure that we have the staff available to do that kind of work. You asked also, Jim, just about other kind of priorities. And I think that one of the things I'm really interested in seeing us do is expanding the number of people that can respond to mental health crisis calls instead of just having police do that. The MCRT, I think both the county and the city call this program something different, but it's the same, where we have clinicians and police officers responding to calls together, I think is one really incredible opportunity we have. But the other is that we're piloting a new program that doesn't have a police response at all, that will be a community response. And I think that might be able to take off some of the load from the officers that we have left, allowing them to address more and serious crimes in other areas. And the last thing I'd like to see us do is do a much better job of collaborating the community prosecutor program we have, which I know a number of council members are familiar with, because you have community prosecutors that can work with neighborhoods to really drill down, especially, for example, where you have code enforcement issues that really should be addressed more quickly, because if they're not addressed, it's where you start to get crime, and having the community prosecutors really be able to weigh in and be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Davis.
Thank you for the question, Jim. We have added about 300 new officers since I have been in office over the last 5+ years. We absolutely need about 250 more officers, and we will have to do that over time. However, I am the only one who was calling at the mayor's March budget message to add more traffic enforcement officers now. That is absolutely what we need. I don't think enforcement comes last. I think enforcement comes first. That also deals with the excessive speeding issue and they're related because 30% of the traffic deaths are actually related to excessive speeding. Of course, I support other Vision Zero strategies that my colleagues have talked about, like narrowing streets and traffic calming, bollards and bulb outs, and have worked to implement all of those strategies in my district over the last 5 years. I also support the speed camera law change because we absolutely need to have technology to help us with enforcement. Regarding sideshows, I have worked together with Councilmember Esparza on this issue over the last couple of years, first to make it illegal to be a spectator at sideshows, and then to go after the promoters and also to test the physical barriers that some of my colleagues have talked about at the highly impacted sites. These efforts have reduced sideshows, but again, enforcement is a big piece of this. PD writes up about 200 citations every time they break up a sideshow, in addition to impounding the participating cars. So it takes a lot of officers to do that. There are so many more public safety issues regarding police officers. We need more police officers for foot patrol in business districts. We need more police officers for our investigations unit so they can solve crimes and get criminals off the streets. And we need to partner our officers with mental health for 24/7 coverage. We currently don't have 24/7 coverage with mental health crisis response teams. In addition, we need more community service officers. They take half the reports at the police department now, and those are the folks who are responding to your burglary calls, your property crimes, and other calls that aren't about life, death, and immediate danger. So we need more of them so that we can have 24/7 coverage of this group as well. We don't need to waste time on measures that won't work to reduce crime, such as the 2 new gun owner mandates that the council put in place recently. I was the only candidate to vote against both of those measures because I believe they're likely unconstitutional and that they will not actually do anything to reduce gun violence in our city. But nobody's talked about fire safety yet, and I hope I still have a little bit more time because we also have thin staffing of our fire department. We just reopened Fire Station 20 at the airport with an expansion plan for the community side at Coleman, and we're about to open Fire Station 37. We have more fire stations to build, and we need to fully staff that department as well. Thank you.
Okay. And thank you all for your responses.